It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's silly time in Los Angeles, and it's also time for, another exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. This week starring special guest star, Miss Brooke Ferry. There's the microphone. Yeah, robust. And thank you, fake band. Thank you, fake audience. Welcome, Brooke.
Real Brooke.
Real Brooke. Brooke is a music lover with a great set of ears who's been a valued member of the Taxi A&R team for the last 5 years or so. She's also an attorney, a world traveler. She's held lofty positions at super cool TV and film music licensing companies, and she loves to surf when she's not wearing headphones at her workstation. She's one of the few people I've worked with in nearly 27 years of running Taxi who is adept at many genres of music, especially in the context of media placements. Let's give her a big Taxi TV welcome, Ms. Brooke Ferry. Yes.
I love my bio, by the way.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I need to copy and paste that and email that to me.
I'll loan you that for the road rally.
Yeah.
Guess what?
My gosh, good idea.
I forgot to open the chat room. So hang on, guys. We're coming.
We don't know what anyone's saying about us.
That's right.
Quick, say bad things now.
It's all good.
I should have played the theme from the dating game with that bio. It was very
It was super.
Yeah,
she likes long walks on the beach.
Right, exactly. Oh, I didn't do that right. Come on. We're coming. Here we come.
No, he's on Facebook. He's lying.
Actually, I have a Facebook account with only 3 friends and nobody knows my name.
That was very wise.
Live streaming. There we go. Actually, Bria knows, I think.
I do.
I do too. You don't.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
you did.
Okay, well, I've still only got 3 friends. Okay, there's the chat room. Now let's click pop out. There we go. And get rid of all that. Bring that over there. And we are entirely good to go. Hello, chatters. How are you guys? Okay. We are so ready. So here's the deal, is we are going to listen. I think we've got 12 songs today that Bria put together for us from the submissions that you guys kindly sent in. And Brooke and I are going to listen. She's primarily the person who's going to espouse. But before we go into that, I mentioned before that you are very adept at many genres within the context of film and TV.
Yeah.
And I can't remember where I was the other day, but somebody said to me, do you guarantee that everybody who listens to music at Taxi is adept at their genre? And I said, yes, but I would rather have somebody who is adept at film and TV music screening hip-hop for film and TV than somebody who is adept at hip-hop in the context of records. Do you feel that way, and can you espouse why?
Yeah, it's super important. I feel like a lot of times when people here at Taxi, they'll say, hey, Brooke, I've got this listing for you. It's maybe a little outside of what I was doing originally. And I said, for the most part, there's not a lot that I don't feel comfortable with within film and television. Now, I am not going to do, a jazz label listing.
Right.
It's not my forte, and it is going to be so different than a jazz cue that's for film and television. And I'm not going to get into jazz theory and key changes and all this stuff for film and television because it shouldn't be there. For the most part, it is going to be something.
Explain why, because there you go. Okay.
Yeah, it's going to be something that, for a lot of things for film and television, especially the instrumentals, it's something that is just going to set the mood. Mm-hmm. They walk into a cool club, everyone's dressed really nice, there's going to be some jazz music playing in the background. It is not supposed to draw your attention unless you are a musician or in this business. You probably shouldn't even really notice it,
What was the movie with Michael Keaton and the kid that played, Michael Keaton, and he had bird wings? It was like
Birdman?
Yeah, that one. Now that one, the jazz would be very important because it's central to the story.
Sure.
But if it's a husband and wife enjoying a romantic anniversary dinner and there's light cocktail jazz playing in the background, you don't want it to get in the way.
Right, exactly. So it's about creating that mood, establishing that feeling. It's the same with like if they go on a romantic trip, or they're in the Bahamas, or they're in Israel. You know, it's we were just talking about that, so it came to mind. But it's about setting that mood so that if somebody sees, you know, a certain landscape, they're not thinking Caribbean, they're thinking Mexico, because we have this music and not this. And they might not even notice that that's what's happening. But then if you start getting with all these steel drums and all these guitars, and then you got the mariachi band on top of it, nobody's paying attention to what's happening in the scene. Instead, they're paying attention to the music, and nobody's happy.
So, yeah, you know, it's funny. Jazz is actually a really good example of this, because jazz people are usually pretty high-end musicians.
Yeah.
They know a lot of theory, and they're really picky about the critiques they get from us. And they don't understand why an amazing piece of music that they submit doesn't get forwarded for a listing for film and TV. It's probably too amazing.
Yeah. A lot of times it's like too good.
Yeah,
and it's like
you can be too good.
You can be too good. But here's the good thing, you know, it's like it's so much easier to pull stuff back than to add it in. If you've got a track and it's got these amazing solos and these things that come in, these counter melodies and all this cool stuff, it's like, who's it? Is it Zsa Zsa Gabor? Somebody said, like, before you leave the room, Coco Chanel, she says, before you leave the room, you know, turn around, and the first accessory you see, take it off.
Wow.
It means you have on too much. So
I've been following her my entire career, and I've never heard that.
Maybe I'm quoting the wrong person, but I've heard that I did not make up that quote.
That's an awesome quote.
I should probably take off the headband then. So...
We've never done fashion on
Yeah.
Taxi TV.
Hey,
8
guys.
years, and we've not yet done fashion.
Add to my bio.
Yeah.
No. But I think it's that kind of idea. So what's that one element that stands out? What's going to punctuate a scene? What's going to stand? It's going to cut through the dialogue and draw your attention away from it. One kind of interesting thing to do is to watch shows like on Netflix from other countries and notice how they use music, and you can really tell when music has been put in later, like after it's been translated, or once it's come over.
Right.
You can really tell the difference. And a lot of times I feel like it's too much, or they're trying. It's like sometimes you can feel like they're trying to. Oh, this is how Americans use music.
Right.
You know, and it feels like it stands out too much. And I'm listening to the song.
Go back and watch Fauda. Have you seen that yet on Netflix? So the first season was never intended to come to America, and then about halfway through the first season in Israel, they said, this is good enough to put on Netflix, bring it to the States. And then the second season, they catered a little more to the American audience, I think. And you get so wrapped up in the show. You're just sitting there holding onto your furniture going, holy crap. You don't really notice the music that much, which that's a great point. I'm going to go back and check it out.
Yeah, but there's a couple shows that I've been like, where is this coming from? But also then if you listen to things that really, you know, that haven't been changed from like their European version, they use music so much more subtly and so much less. So it's kind of interesting to see that that balance between when it feels too stark for our ears, you know, for what we're used to, and when you're just listening to the song and not paying attention to what's happening.
We went to see Crazy Rich Asians last night, which is a pretty predictable romantic comedy, but really, really, really good, really done well. Yeah. And I kept thinking, I wonder who the music supervisor is, and got to the end, it was Gabe Hilfer.
Okay. Oh.
And I've got to say, he should get some sort of award, because he had to do music that played in the context of Singapore. So it was Asian music. A lot of it was like American songs done with an Asian vocal.
Okay.
And it all worked. It was really good, but I kept thinking throughout the whole film, I wonder who the soup was, and boy, that must have been challenging. So Gabe, if you're watching, great job, dude. Okay, let us listen to some music and see if we can find any great music from Singapore in today's stuff. There it is, Singaporean music, right there. And the first song we're going to listen to today is called Albuquerque. Funny that we would pull up a geography song.
The night that I drove south from Albuquerque, with the top of my in a sleepy, dusty, tranquil, boring town. I left the girl behind in Albuquerque, though many times I thought to turn around. Maybe there's a place she cannot hurt me. A sleepy, dusty, tranquil, boring town. I knew the mystery of that woman would follow me forever, would follow me but never more have power to put me down. So I parked my Mustang here in Escondido, a sleepy, dusty, tranquil, boring town. I must be 300 miles from Albuquerque.
Oh yeah.
Yes, surely I will not be run to ground.
All right.
First thing that stands out to me about this one is like my mind immediately goes source music, because I think so. Like I'm assuming you want me to talk about these from a film and TV perspective.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And tell them what source music is.
Yeah. Okay. So you have like a few different kind of uses. You have like your background instrumental, background song, source, and then on camera. So the first two, I think, would be self-explanatory. It would be something that they would license from, a publisher or library, and would go in the background to enhance the scene.
And it could be like the background of a bar or a hotel lobby or anything.
Right. Exactly. And then source music is going to be something where it's coming from something. So you get in your car, you turn on the radio, and they're driving, and that's the source is the radio.
Or it could be a jukebox in a bar.
Jukebox
Because
in
for
a
those of you who are going to
bar.
correct me on the bar.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I've never been in one.
yeah, so this, because I would definitely say it's got a vintage feel, it's got a more retro vibe, that's where you're going to find most of your source music, or that's where you're going to, yes, most of your retro or vintage stuff is probably going to be more often for film and TV used in source music, because
Not exclusively, but more often.
not exclusively, unless it's a period piece.
Right.
Or they're really trying to set a specific vibe with like,
Could almost be
I'm trying to say, just it'd be in a more I think more often in film and TV. I think you find
a
it
juxtaposition.
less.
Some people would use this juxtaposed against something really modern to make a joke, but that would be
Yeah.
extremely rare. Or any movie with what's his name, Bridges, Jeff Bridges.
Bridges.
Any movie that Jeff Bridges is in, this would work.
This would
in.
work. This would totally.
He could
work.
actually sing this in a movie.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what stands out to me as working. I'm sure people are going to be like, he says Albuquerque and Escondido, and that isn't too specific for licensing. For a lot of cases, it is. That's an issue. Because if this is going to play the background of a Jeff Bridges movie, and he is in Texas and not in New Mexico, it's going to throw some people off. It's going to, why does that make sense? Why are they singing about Albuquerque when he's not there? And it's, again, like what we talk about, as opposed to just like pushing the story of the scene, it stands out and it draws your attention away.
If it were background source in a dusty peanuts on the ground bar scene,
Then it's fine.
it would be
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, because it's far enough away and you're feeling the vibe more than
Right.
you're hearing the lyric.
Yeah, exactly. And also this idea of that, people who are, when this, like, let's say this is like, supposed to be a well-known song that would play on a jukebox. People who write these songs, they write about Albuquerque, and especially in this genre. They write about places, they write about Tennessee, they have specific, references. And so when you know that it's not meant just as like something that's gonna enhance the scene, it's meant something that's coming from somewhere else and has a different source, a different place that it was made, then I think then you're fine.
Okay.
It's not going to stand out too much. I think the vocals sound really good. The one thing that stood out to me is that the vocal mix feels contemporary when the rest of it doesn't, and I think the vocals could be dropped a little bit more.
Good observation.
I think it's going to give it a more, authentic vintage sound, and it's going to sit better behind dialogue, because something like this would be used in a car, in a dusty bar, and it's going to be sitting behind whatever is going on.
With peanut shells on the floor. Gotta have the peanut shells.
And Jeff Bridges.
Yeah, and Jeff Bridges.
Eating peanuts.
That's a great observation. See, that's the difference between somebody who's an expert on songs and somebody who's an expert on songs in the context of film and TV. As much as I'm around this stuff and think I know everything, I obviously don't, because I wouldn't have made that comment, but you're absolutely right. Good job. You get an A, Brooke. You've done that before.
You know what? The other thing that stood out to me is that I really liked the violin, and the guitar solo I felt works. But we were talking earlier about things that like punctuate too much and just like stand out too much, and the piano totally did that to me. Because all of a sudden we got this honky tonk piano, and it's that accessory that you don't need. Just one too many things.
It was in such a weird register that it actually took me about 3 seconds to go, oh, that's piano.
Yeah.
It was usually honky tonk would be up a register or two from there. It really caught my attention.
Yeah.
Another great observation.
Yeah. So you don't want too much to catch your attention.
But awesome song, awesome
That was fun.
vocal.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Just like, I was thinking that if I had ever smoked weed, that this would be what I would want playing in my Cadillac Eldorado convertible as I drove through the desert doing that. If I ever did it.
Yeah.
But I don't. Okay, next up we have. Oh,
I'm not happy. I'm not happy for you.
I'm not happy. This must be a birthday song. And play that sucker, please.
Maybe I'm not being fair, and it's been too long to care, but it looks like you're doing well from what I see. I bet she treats you right when you hold her in your arms at night. I'm sure that you're not thinking about me. But how could you move on so easily? I'm not happy for you. I'm not wishing you well. You deserve everything you get, 'cause you only care about yourself. Get out of my head. Leave me alone. And when I don't feel like this, maybe then I'll move on. But I'm not happy for you. This our end, your new start. Did I even leave a mark? I'm not sure. I really wanna know. Do you know what you left behind? Do I even cross your mind? I've tried with all I can to let you go, but I can't, so I just won't let it show. I'm not happy for you. I'm not wishing you well. You deserve everything you get, 'cause you only care about.
Somebody asked in the chat room, what genre is this? And somebody else said, I'm guessing angry. That made my day. Brooke?
So yeah, I do think genre is a question here. I really do. The big guitars at the beginning, I'm thinking like, okay, is this kind of more of a retro rock? And then I'm thinking it's got some 90s influence. But then the vocals feel a little more contemporary. I do think I think it should go contemporary in this instance. Like the other one, it doesn't and it shouldn't. It should be exactly what it is.
You mean this one should be made more contemporary?
Yeah, I do think so. I think it would be equal amount of work to tie it together into a really strong, concise, very authentic sounding, more retro sound than it would be to make it sound more contemporary.
Would you go pop punk on it, maybe?
Yeah.
Little sassy attitude,
Yeah.
kind of a FU?
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely what I had in mind. I think it's the same amount of work either way, and there's just more options. There's more opportunities if it's more contemporary. There's a lot of retro music out there, and a lot of it that really is authentic of that era. So I think it's harder to compete.
It almost cried out to be featured in a montage because there's so much story and so much emotion written in the lyric
Yeah.
that you don't need dialogue. So that would be very limiting in the number of uses it would get in that context. But I think your instinct to go more contemporary opens it up to a lot more stuff.
Yeah. It's a specific song. I mean, it's not going to work in every scene. But it is really distinctive. So it will stand out in that case. But I think it would need to be a montage thing because it's going to get in the way of dialogue.
Wouldn't want to be her boyfriend.
Yeah. It's cohesive. It all goes together. One thing that is so important is that on the chorus, especially in a song like this, you have this big, crazy, powerful vocal on the chorus, and she does that here. But I feel like there's too much of it on the verse as well. I feel like it starts at an 8 and then it hits 9 and then it's 10 and then it's 9 and then it's 10 again, and it just stays too heavy, too intense for too long. And I feel like if the verses go down a little bit more mellow, it's just going to feel more dynamic. It's going to have more chances to play against picture because it's got more movement. The scene can go more places as opposed to this is an angry mean scene and that's it. That's all that gets to happen.
It's a great example, something that points out really well the difference between records and film and TV, because in the context of records, you would want that vocal up and you'd be sitting in your car singing along with this because you hate that SOB that you just broke up with, and this is the message you're sending him. So you want it to be anthemic and evoke sing-alongs with people, but in the context of film and TV, you're right. She's like way out there.
Yeah, it's too much. I would compress the vocals a little bit more. It might have just been the sound here, but they were hitting me too hard.
Yeah, no, this is perfect sound.
It's okay. I'm sure it is.
100% perfect. That's why we don't bother running it through a wire into the system. We play it through the speakers because it's perfection.
No, and it is good. And I mean, I didn't have like a volume control, but I'm imagining in my head if I pulled that down so that it could play like at the level you'd want it under picture, I'm going to lose most of the instrumentation. And that's like a really good thing to do, you guys, once you're mixing it, is find something on YouTube or whatever that doesn't have music, that's just dialogue, and play your song under it, and make sure, and you have to bring it down to a certain level volume wise to accommodate the dialogue, and see what you're losing, because if you're losing all your instrumentation,
which you would on this.
I think
Actually,
you
Bria,
would.
can you go to a minute into this and let's turn it way down and see what we hear. Let's do a little research.
Yeah.
It's almost all vocal.
Yeah, you get a little guitar, you totally lose the bass. You lose you lose a lot.
All right, Fletcher Munson curve. Only studio rats knew what I meant. All right.
And then once you bring it up, you get that brightness of the guitar that you don't get. So those vocals need to be brought down and
Yep.
compressed a little bit.
Great feedback. All right, moving on. The next one's called Forevermore, which is how long that relationship didn't last. Let's have a listen.
the crowds at the ground. Gonna be high, let it cry, baby, in the crowd.
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my first thing is that the intro is just too long. What's going to happen with the music supervisor is, one, if they're really, really pressed for time, they're just going to say the intro is too long and they're going to move on. If they're not, they're going to start fast forwarding and like jumping, and they're going to miss the vocal intro. They're going
Right.
to miss part of the verse, and they're going to miss the whole arc and the way that moves the song. And that arc is so important for pushing a scene and how it's going to, like, because especially the editor is thinking, this is when she says this, and this is when he says this, and this is when we cut over here. And how everything lines up is just really, really important. And if you miss something, you're thinking in your head, it's not going to line up correctly. Maybe it could have.
Right, and they purposely go in. We've seen Frank Palazzolo at the rally when he's been on stage a couple of times. Frank will literally say, "I'm skipping forward to check the arc." He's looking for the build.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to hear the whole thing. He just needs to go, "Okay, this is there, that's there, and it drops back." They know.
Yeah, I've had music supervisors who just to say, I can see the wave
Right.
and know that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's no, if they're saying no breaks, that they know they have a scene that's going to have like there's really strong cuts or whatever.
Yeah.
And they don't see any of those like sectional breaks, and man, it's not going to work.
A lot of musicians would like to punch him in the face for that, but put yourself
Don't.
in their shoes for a while, and you can absolutely see that
Yeah.
that's the case.
Yeah. And the fact is, a lot of so many of these people, they're so good. They've been
Yeah.
doing it for so long. They're probably not wrong. They know just that they can see it.
Don't
know?
you like my song? It's not that they don't like your song, it's they don't like it for that
Yeah.
thing.
When I'm screening, I try to tell people that. I try to say, I actually really like it. I'd love to listen to it in my car, or I'd love to play this while I'm, cooking or whatever. But that doesn't mean it's gonna, match to a scene or cut properly. So 15 seconds intro. That's it.
Yeah,
Don't do more than that. You don't need to.
that one was probably 30 or better.
I think so. The other thing that I think is really important with an intro is that it sets the mood for the song. I mean, this is for, radio play too, but for film and television especially, you want to know what you're getting into, kind of. And some surprise is great because you want to keep people excited, but too much surprise, and it's like, why is that there? And I think the intro is really pretty. The music's really nice. It's nicely done. It's cool. And I get this kind of languid feel. And then the vocals hit, and like,
Yeah.
I didn't know that was going to happen. And I think it could be jarring when set. It's like, I feel like the way the vocal and the melody is like Korn, Incubus, it's so much harder. It's got that rhythmic drive. And I don't hear that coming from the intro at all.
And the bridge, when it got to that big bridge, I
Yeah.
thought that's a whole other great song.
Yeah, I like the bridge,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it didn't work there to me. It took it too far to another direction for me for licensing. I felt like the melody from verse to chorus could change more, because I feel like what's starting to happen is you've got that. I mean, in the verse, I was moving to it. I felt like the melody like had a really good, just kind of pulse, a good groove to it. But then I felt like it continued too much through the chorus. I
I
felt
can
like
still hear it, so it's good. It's
Yeah,
memorable,
yeah.
but you're right. There was very little differentiation.
yeah, the chorus to me felt more like a pre-chorus. I think if it was halved and you end in that forevermore, and that lifted, and then you had a much more sort of hook-driven, less lyrically dense chorus, something that just kind of had just a couple lines and sort of repeated more, I think it could stand out more. Because everything else is very lyric-y. And I feel like if the chorus was just more on the melody.
It had a back and forth to it.
Yeah.
And it kept that through the
Yeah.
chorus. You're right.
Yeah.
It didn't differentiate.
It can start to feel a little sing-songy, and sometimes that can be distracting.
Yep. Good feedback. Thank you. Okay, moving on. We are doing pretty darn well on time. It's great.
I can talk more.
If we get through all 12, which we do have 12, and we're going into number 4, we will do some Q&A at the end because I've had Brooke on panels at the Road Rally. She's really good at answering. There's literally not a question I've heard her get stumped by yet. So today's your chance. All right.
No chemistry, please.
And no calculus for me. Or no French.
Je peux faire le français.
Yeah, I took French 101 4 years in a row and flunked it 4 times. But I know how to ask where the bakery is. I have been to Paris twice. I know how to ask where the bakery is, the butcher, where's the bus, and what's your sister's name or something like that? I don't know. Anyway,
The first few make sense.
yeah, there were a boy and a girl in the context of the French book, and it was always like, what's your brother's name, what's your sister's name, conjugations, and I never got that. Anyway, Tell Me is the name of this one.
What you dreaming? Tell me what you're seeing. Are there castles in the sky where shooting stars fly by? Tell me. Don't wanna say goodnight. We could talk till the night turns into day. We could talk about the way you take my breath away, like a secret valentine, whispered softly on the line till the next time that we meet. Tell me, we should be together. Tell me, you'll love me forever. I want forever too, just as long as it's with you. Tell me, this dream is coming true. We could talk till the night turns into day. We could talk about the way you take my breath away, like a secret valentine, whispered softly on the line till the next time that we meet. I go crazy when I can't hear your voice. It's not like I have a choice. Your echoes deep beneath my skin. You know what I want to hear. Come on now, indulge me, dear. Late night phone bell, ring, ring, ring.
Okay, before we get into it, I've got to make a comment that Ken DePotter may have come up with a new word. I could be wrong, but he actually said the word in the chat, discongruent. I always thought it was incongruous.
Or discongruous?
I don't know.
Incongruent. Discongruent.
I like it.
I haven't heard it, but
yeah,
I get
I've got
it.
to say, call Merriam-Webster now because you nailed a new word down. Anyway, what'd you think?
So when I see the title, it immediately reminds me of another song. And then when I hear it, the Tell Me,
Yeah,
it still
Too
reminds
much?
me of that song.
really. What's the song?
Oh, I really don't want to sing it. I'm terrible singing voice. But do you know what I'm talking about?
What song?
Tell me how you do that thing that makes me scream seasick. No? Okay. I don't even remember, but it's like so in my head, and I can't even like totally get the thing. So if I was screening this, I would go on YouTube right now and find it so that I could give adequate. Somebody, there we go. Thank you. The Cure.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it reminds me of that. And the issue with that is going to be that if someone else is going to think that too, and if they're watching television and that comes on, they're going to be like, oh, The Cure. Oh, it's not. Oh, is this a remake? Is this?
Well, that
You
can be a
know-
good thing or a bad thing, as we know.
Definitely.
I mean, it's not a rip-off of the song, but it does remind you of it.
Yeah.
It makes you think that it's it, which a lot of times music supervisors secretly want that from you, but
for
they
sure.
won't ever say it out loud
Yeah.
because they don't want to get their butt in trouble. And this isn't that close.
No.
It's evocative of it, but
Yeah.
it's not stealing anything
No.
from it.
Right.
And so,
I mean, I think it's going to depend. I think it'll depend on the use, and I think it's going to depend on the supervisor. I think there's places where you do want to grab the audience and make them immediately get into the music, but then the other question that I have with this is it going to get people out of the scene? Because are they going to start thinking about a Cure song and, oh, when was the last time I heard that song? Or they're going to get that in their head and they're going to start doing, wait, who was that band? Who was that band? And that can draw people out. So, it's not like massive, but it's definitely something to think about. Basically, my suggestion for the artist on this one would be see what other people have to say about that. If other people are saying I'm just thinking of that song, then it might be something you might want to tweak just a little bit. I think it could be
did
an
you guys?
easy...
Let's get some feedback from the chat room. What did you guys think? Did
Oh, Quando.
Did you guys feel like it was too reminiscent of the Cure song? It was really good, by the way.
No. Nobody has anything to say. Non-issue. I thought The Cure immediately.
You're so chatty when we don't ask you for something. Then we ask you, it's like everybody's, I got to go grab a beer. A lot of folks heard the Cure.
okay.
Liked it a lot. Didn't jump out at me. Okay.
So,
All right.
so that doesn't help at all. Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Right. Yes, you guys were very helpful.
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get away from that.
Okay.
One thing that I think it is really hard when you put your hook in your verse. There's it's songs that definitely do it. Stone Cold, Demi Lovato is amazing. The main hook is in the verse and it works. I think there's a question to me as whether or not I'm waiting for the chorus to be over so I can get back to the verse. And I don't really, maybe it doesn't matter too much, but maybe it does. I mean, it's not usually something that you want. I just feel like the verses, stood out to me more. I think you could consider swapping them. I think there could be some changes in the structure a little bit. If you had there's the oohs and oohs and oohs, that's a bridge to me for licensing purposes. That and then a bridge, I feel like you're losing the momentum of the song too much. I mean, chances are, if you got this much used, that'd be insane and amazing. But I think you always want to structure your song as if they're going to use the whole thing. I mean, it's rarely going to happen, but just in case.
I had an interesting thing pop up. I actually thought of you and one of our other screeners. I can't remember who it was, but I was at the Hawaii Songwriters Festival a month or so ago, and I think I was moderating a listening panel with really good people on it, and we were Jonathan McHugh was on it. Lynn Grossman from Secret Road. So like really, heavyweight people know what they're doing. And they hit on an interesting subject, which is some songs were obviously written for licensing because something got played on the panel and they all went, that was written for licensing, right? And they said, look, that's not a bad thing. But in the context of writing a normal song, you wouldn't write a song like that. This song, every line, everything structurally about it said this is so perfect for licensing that it was obvious to people who were in the business.
Okay.
But they said that they would still use it. It was just noteworthy. So
Yeah.
that was just an interesting thing that's never come up in all the moments that, I've moderated
Yeah.
panels over the years. That was interesting. And so, as I listened to this,
Yeah.
I immediately thought when I heard "Tell Me, Tell Me, Tell Me" at the top of the song, I thought it would be really cute in the context of a TV commercial with like a teenage girl talking to her boyfriend, like almost like a little pillow talkie vibe for a cell phone company or
Yeah,
something. But
communications, yeah.
once I had that thought, I couldn't shake it for the rest of the song. It's
Yeah.
like I couldn't think of where it would work.
Well, definitely would be great for there. And if you get it in a cell phone commercial, that's
Yeah, it'll
who
pay for
cares
your
where else
college.
it's gonna go.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Any other thoughts, or are we wrapped up on that one?
I really like the flirtiness on the vocals on the verses, but then it kind of drops on the chorus, and I feel like the chorus vocal tone style is a little inconsistent for me. I think it could keep that lightness a little bit more, but I'm getting pretty picky.
Yeah, but I agree. If Robin Frederick were here, she would have picked up on the flip as well, and she would have absolutely said that the verse, "Tell me, tell me,
Yeah.
tell me, tell me what you're dreaming, tell me what you're seeing," that's a chorus.
That's the chorus.
Yeah, and then and just looking on paper at the verse or at the chorus lyric, that's a verse.
Yeah.
So
I would love to also hear that bridge be broken up and use that bridge as a pre-chorus. So it would go them from the verse. The chorus would be the verse. Then you could take that bridge and use that last half because it lifts up, and then that would lead you. Because if you go from the chorus, it's not going to lead that well into the verse to make the verse feel like a chorus. So if you use that second part of the bridge underneath there, then it would just, I feel like it would just move right into that "tell me, tell me, tell me," and then that would just stands out so well as a chorus.
I hadn't planned to do this, but as long as we're here, I'd like to plug Robin Frederick's book, Shortcuts to Songwriting for Film and TV. And the reason being that it, as we've spoken about during this show, it is a different discipline. And to the best of my knowledge, this is the only book on the market that approaches songwriting from the discipline of writing for film and TV. And Robin would point out things like flipping this and why it would be better flipped. So buy that book. If you don't like it, I am the publisher of the book. I make a few bucks. If you don't like it, send it back to me in resellable condition. I will refund your money. Really. What? Oh, you're putting a link? Thank you. I think, yeah. Anyway, cool song needs to be rearranged. Moving on, letting go is always the first move. There seems to be a bit of a theme today. We should introduce.
But you know what? That is such. I feel like that is so topical
Yeah.
right now. I feel like pop, especially, all the girls were like, "Get out of my life. You're no good for me. I don't want to have anything to do with you." And all the guys were like, "I'm so sorry. Please take me back." It's a nice guy. I mean, am I wrong?
I don't know a guy that's ever said "I'm sorry." My wife says I'm incapable of saying the words "I'm sorry."
I'm pretty sure there's a Justin Bieber song called
I'm sorry. Justin, come on, dude, you're ruining it for the rest of us. Okay, let's have a listen. Letting go is always the first move.
Action always steals the show. Tumble head first is how I grow. I guess it's time for me to go somewhere new. I can't fake it even though I think I can sometime. Can't take it when I don't even care to cry. Some things change but I don't have to spell that out to you. I know you don't understand a single word I say, but you're not here to justify me. It's something we do know. I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I know I'll never be quite right. I'm only saying the beginning starts tonight. Happiness is found when I dream. Can't shut the door to what I vaguely see. I need to be true. I need to find out. I need to be free. Your face is the lace that you use sometime. I'm not falling for it anymore. I got my pride. I'm in my bed alone and it's a gutsy place to be. Circles make me dizzy. Time to leave this hollow scene. I tried my best to fit and fill up someone else's needs. I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'll never be quite right. I'm only saying the beginning starts tonight. Change is strong, it strikes and chooses you. There's something deep inside I know I've got to prove. But no matter how we got here, it's where we're going that's real. Letting go is always the first move. I know you don't understand.
I keep dropping that thing. Sorry. See, I can say I'm sorry, honey. I hope you're watching today's episode.
So I see the title, and then it doesn't occur again until the bridge, right? Am I missing it?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
I somehow was relating the last line of the chorus. I'm only saying
Yeah.
the beginning starts tonight.
Right. So I wouldn't call
wow.
I wouldn't call the song that.
Yeah.
So that's an easy change.
You could call it the beginning starts tonight.
Yeah.
Because that's the
first,
punchline.
Yeah, I think letting go is always the first move is too long of a title. And I think that the beginning starts tonight would be, it's shorter, it's more concise, and it's the hook. So I just think it just sums up the song a little bit better so that the listener knows what they're getting into. As far as that hook goes, melodically, that line is so nice. It's like I get to the end of the chorus and that line hits and it's so pretty. So that's the one that stands out to me. So I think that stands out, should be the title. I really like that line, and I would be curious. I would sort of have to play the song again and imagine it, but I feel like I'd like to hear that as the bookend of the chorus. Because from the verse, it just goes right into the chorus, and I have no idea I'm in the chorus until I hear the hook. And I feel like that's going to start to make the song feel very sort of long and circular, and you're not going to have that sectional contrast that kind of always keeps you surprised and always is that next thing that keeps you engaged. You can end up sort of getting lost and tune out. So I think that if you had that, it might not have to be the same lyric. If you have that melodic phrasing and pattern at the top, it's really going to say, here's your chorus.
It's what do they call those people that went from castle to castle back in the day with a lute, and they sang those songs?
Minstrels?
Yes. Thank you. What kind I was having a brain fart on
No,
minstrels.
I couldn't
Okay.
think of The Cure. So I'm pretty... Meredith, by the way, I'm sorry. That was my best friend in high school. Huge Cure fan.
If she's watching, and we hope she is. But it was minstrel-like in that it told a story. And for those of us who have been around the industry long enough, we know that choruses came from the refrain, which were popularized by minstrels who would go from castle to castle, and they found that the crowd reacted. The king and the queen would be very pleased when they heard something that was familiar and repetitive. So that was the refrain, which is normally a hooky line at the end of... technically, a refrain, I believe, is a hooky line at the end of a verse that becomes like a little mini chorus almost. And this felt very minstrel-like, like it was telling a story. And all of a sudden I realized, oh, what this really is kind of a Broadway song.
Oh.
It took a minute for that
Yeah.
to reveal itself. And maybe it was just the blocky chords of the piano, but it felt, there's some moments of brilliance in the lyric craft in here where I went, this person is a pretty brilliant lyricist. There were moments, not to take anything away, but there were moments. So latch onto those. And then I got to Your Face is an Ace, and I laughed. That was kind of a throwaway, but I bet that you could take this song and do it with an acoustic guitar so that it wasn't so blocky and choppy feeling, and take the concept in there and make it more tender and emotional
and more classic folk.
Yeah. Then, the story makes more sense. Right now, it's like one person standing on a stage on Broadway with the light bathing her, singing this ode to this dude that she just dumped.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I feel like if you're going to get that dramatic piano, you're doing like sort of adult contemporary pop ballad, but the rest of the song doesn't go that direction.
Yeah.
So I think a much more tender, more acoustic guitar would definitely bring it together. I found the vocals style less contemporary than some other songs, and I think that if it did go sort of more of a classic folk direction, then that vocal style would make sense. It would work.
Or Broadway. I mean, I couldn't take myself out of like Cats, or what was the one with the Green Witch? Wicked. Yeah.
So good.
Where it's just one female soloist standing on the stage telling the story. The vibe felt like that. Anyway.
No, it's got a memories feel for sure. I see that. I definitely see the light of the moonlight. But how marketable is that going to be?
Not very.
Yeah.
Just saying. I'm only telling you what it evoked for me. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying what's it made me feel like. Okay.
Yeah.
There I am. Got to get myself back in frame. Okay, moving on to the next one, which is called Vacay, or in French we would say Vacay.
Gonna kick off our vacation. Grab your bags and pack the car. It's been a week since graduation. I got my friends and my guitar. We got the summer sun. It's shining down on everyone. Radio's on overload, so turn it up till we explode. On a little vacay, got a little cray-cray. Really ought to go, but you know we're gonna stay safe. Ain't seen nothing yet, we're letting nothing get in our way. Kicking off the prom dress, making such a hot mess. Everybody's looking, but you know we couldn't care less. Vacation's taking us away. Hey, hey. It's gonna be a summer to remember. Some nights we might forget. Not coming home until September. It isn't over yet. We're gonna lose control and let the whole thing rock and roll. We're blowing off some steam. Gonna dance all night, alright, let's scream. On a little vacay, got a little cray-cray. Really ought to go, but you know we're gonna stay. Kicking up the sand, we're dancing on the dock of the bay. Kicking on the prom dress, making such a hot mess. Everybody's looking, but you know we couldn't care less. Vacation's taking us away. Take a selfie with a hot dude, throw it up on YouTube. Getting by on no sleep, eating only fast food. Checking out our dance, and we're throwing all our plans away. On a little vacay, got a little cray-cray. Really ought to go, but you know.
I don't think I got all the lyrics. They did say something about throwing up on YouTube.
I did
was
hear
right.
YouTube.
Throw it
throw
up.
it up on YouTube.
That was somebody who was throwing up on YouTube. Okay, so that's
I'm sure that's on there.
when enunciation is important. So, like, the chorus is so catchy, right? It's like you can't help but, like, start bouncing around.
Yeah.
I think there is a little what was the word that we had?
Discongruent.
It's a little discongruent.
Yes, it is.
In that we've got this kind of tween, bouncy, cutie thing that I would like. Our little vacay. I mean, to me, this is like that. The vacay thing, the melodic movement of the chorus, and even the instrumentation underneath. That to me says like, theme song for like an animated series. Like I could totally imagine on one of the DreamWorks Netflix shows that they've got
Yeah.
going on. I can totally imagine the little like animated girls like packing up their pink car or something. But hey, like theme, what? That's what you want. That's amazing.
Yeah.
But that little girl animation is not going to take off her prom dress, or be a hot mess. And then also the guitars that you have at the top are too edgy for that sort of tween feel. And then some of the lyrics are kind of too specific, I think. Are going to start to feel too specific.
It felt
and
like
too
there was a
edgy.
lot to love, and it felt like it tried too hard at the same time, and it was discongruent.
Yeah.
But the kicking off the prom dress, honestly, maybe it's just because I'm a guy and I'm looking at it from a sexist perspective, but that's got connotations. I won't get into it, but it felt a little discongruent with the rest of the lyric.
Yeah. I don't imagine this girl who says vacay talking about kicking off her prom dress. Is that sort of what you're trying to get at? Or am I... Are you sort of saying that the guys talk about kicking off the prom dress, but not the girl?
there's a phrase which I'm probably going to get wrong, and please don't anybody be offended by this, but I'm really trying, because it's a common phrase about it came off like a prom dress.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
Well, that's what he's alluding to.
yeah, but kicking off the prom dress in this case signifies it's the end of the school year. We're going to go on vacay because summer's right around the
Oh,
corner.
yeah.
That's how. I'm
I
trying
must
to.
have a dirty mind because I didn't even think that at all.
Well,
I went right where you went.
Yeah,
I did.
so
Because
that's
that
how it-
phrase is so common.
Right. It would
Yeah.
normally be in that context, and then I had to look at this. Kicking off the
Yeah, if you don't-
vacation's taking us away, so
Yeah.
it just felt like it was
Yep.
it was a cool line. It just wasn't right.
Might
in
want to
that.
work on that
Yeah.
lyric. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you don't, that's what you're going for.
Well, good. I'm glad I'm not the only pervert on the show today.
I didn't even get that it wouldn't be that.
Yeah.
It's so terrible. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think this.
Oh, and look, it's
Is
got
this-
graduation. So it is setting
Yeah.
it up with graduation, kicking
Right.
off it's the end of the school year. Here comes
Yeah.
vacay.
I think you're kicking off your graduation gown. You're kicking off your school shoes. You're kicking off your uniform, but not the prom dress.
Yeah, because that was like 3 months ago.
Yeah, and I think that's trying. It feels, if it's because now that I look at it and I realize that we're not talking about something sexual, it feels written to the rhyme. Feels like you want to get hot mess. I feel like the same thing with cray cray. I use that term. Don't tell anybody. I have a 7-year-old. I get to use that. But vacay and cray cray, I feel like that's written too much.
Trying
to the
too
rhyme.
hard.
It's just trying too hard. We love that you're trying.
And it's not that far off.
No, it's not.
It had the right
Yeah.
spirit and the right instrumentation and the right production and the
Totally.
right age group. It had all that. It's just try a little less hard on the lyric.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
keep your prom dress on.
Yeah, keep the prom dress on. If you're going young, keep it young. And then
Right.
I think it could be great. I think it could really work for, a young tween cute thing.
Yep.
Keep it cute. But great, good mix, good vocal, good instrumentation, good
Yeah,
performances.
there was a lot about it that was right.
Yeah.
Don't let the fact that we found some things that were at issue
Yeah.
to mean that it sucked, because it didn't. Okay, the next one's called Lost in Time.
Lights flicker, time passes by. sunny eyes, they don't reflect what I see. Through blinding rays, I try to recall. I feel wrong, make it through it all. Through blinding rays, I try to recall. I feel wrong, make it through
So the thing that struck me is that the second time I got to the chorus, I was like, oh, it's a really pretty chorus. Like the through the blinding rays, I try to recall, I fear we won't make it through it all. I like it. I like, especially for licensing, I often like lyrics that don't, like, I don't know what they mean except that I do. If that makes any sense. Like a lyric that evokes something as opposed to
Being literal.
being literal, and it has something that have a lot of different applications and apply to a lot of different things. And then I think this can, I think the melody fits that really nicely. I find the structure of the song hard to follow. I didn't realize that was the chorus until I heard it the second time. And then it repeats 1, 2, 3, 4 times at the end. And I think that it's going to lose its impact repeating that many times. When I look at it, I feel like if you have that, let's just tell them a couplet, you have that twice. I feel like if you had a contrasting couplet in the middle of that, something that had a different line length, something that had different, different phrasing, it would, and then you went back to that couplet, I think it would feel like a really tight, concise chorus. And then I think if that repeated twice, and that would be enough, and it would give you more structure. There's a lot of 80s influence in here, but it's not an 80s song melodically. So I worry that's going to be a little hard to market.
Yeah, the synth and the vocal delivery connotated 80s, but the song itself didn't feel like it was from that era.
Yeah. So I would not go 80s. I'd go contemporary and, less sort of like moody shoegazer vocal and more contrast in your vocal, like more emotional contrast, and especially sectional contrast. And then, you can have some of, we see it so many times in the listings, right? Like influence or
Right.
flavor. And it's so hard. It's so hard to figure out how how to get flavor without sounding too retro. And honestly, the only answer I have is to just listen to a lot of music. Just find people. It's so, you can Google it. What are cool contemporary bands that have 80s influence? You can go that, simple. Now, be careful, because you're going to get things that are wrong, so use judgment when listening. But when you listen, then sort of try to pick out, why doesn't this sound 80s? Well, maybe it's probably, simply what samples you're using, definitely percussion, your percussion sounds, having a big solid kick drum is going to help it sound more contemporary. And just having those 80s things is just accents as opposed to the main focus of the song.
It's a tough balance,
It
knowing
is.
when you've done enough or gone too far.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Let's listen. Oh, speaking of which, this one's called I've Got to Move On. Perfect.
Days come and go, looking for ways to leave me alone. And the nights all seem so dark, hoping for light to rescue my heart. 'Cause sometimes I feel like I never belong, like everything real was suddenly gone, and time's just a wheel that keeps rolling along. So this may be strange, I'll never see change unless I move on. That's why I've got to move on. Can't let the past weigh me down. I need to move fast as I'm covering ground. But whatever I find won't keep me from what I left behind and what's left to come. 'Cause sometimes I feel like I've never belonged, like everything real was suddenly gone. Time's just a wheel we see rolling along. So this may seem strange, there'll never be change until I move on. That's why I've got to move on.
So I think this lyric could be great for licensing. It's simple, but it's universal. Move on from what? It could be so many different things, you know? It could hit so many different scenes. It could even play just kind of more generally. I think there are melodic potentials for a contemporary sound, but I do find the vocal going more vintage, which isn't quite working for me here like it did for the very first song, because I don't hear this as source music. Ballads, I find.
Oh yeah, this is definitely
You
not
hear,
source.
yeah, ballads unlikely. It's way too lyrically focused. It's not something that's going to sit in the background. So in that case, I do think if the vocal were any, I feel like it's a little inconsistent for me.
I was honestly, I don't disagree with you, but I was so sucked into the fact that it was so genuine and
Oh, yeah.
intimate
Oh yeah,
that I kept thinking, God, this defines intimate. I mean, first
Yeah.
of all, the recording was, that dude was an inch from the microphone and pulled it off well.
yeah. There were a few too many breaths for me.
Really? Didn't
I
bother
heard.
me.
It didn't bother you? Okay.
No, but
I felt like the vocals were a little too hot.
Interesting.
And a little, especially at the top. Once you got into the chorus and the guitar picked up, then it didn't bother me. But I felt like the breaths were just a little too much. But
it's
it
fine.
was.
Normally
it
that would drive me crazy,
Yeah.
being a retired engineer, but I didn't even notice it.
You didn't?
No.
Oh, I noticed them at the top. People can disagree.
Yeah,
right?
I almost felt like it was cool that I could hear the saliva on his lips as his lips parted. I could hear that mouth noise. To me, it made it sound like when you say goodnight to your spouse an inch from his or her ear.
Yeah. No, it's
And
super.
there's that intimacy.
There's a super intimate, which is awesome. And I often talk to people about that. I often talk about that. I think I've talked to you about that. I think we've said that here. That the difference between performing for an audience out there
Right.
and because I think we're getting less of those listings now, but for a long time it was like that. It all was like intimate, earnest, singer-songwriter, you know, and I feel like, you know, it's all about that. Like you're in the room with that person and they're singing for you right there. And you're like listening
You're
as
right.
opposed
That's
to,
we are getting less of those listings.
yeah.
But that's because people are using less acoustic-y stuff in montages, it seems like.
oh yeah, definitely.
It-
Yeah, you
it-
get so much more of that kind of, you're getting the moody dream pop
Right.
and the synthy stuff. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Also, and I'm really being picayune here, but there was a voicing issue. There was a harmonic or an overtone in the guitar chord. It felt like there were strings that could have been muted that weren't. And it kept sounding like it was another song. If I were in the studio, I would check to see if there was like something else recorded on that tape. And the 24 track that we're doing now didn't adequately erase the old song. It felt like it was leaking into me. Yeah, I may be half deaf because of my age, but I can still hear that. All right, should we move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Though I would talk all often about like, let's hear the contrast before the chorus, and that was so nice before the chorus. And I really, really liked the way you start singing and then you change the guitar on the chorus.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
And the guitar sound was very appropriate for it.
Very
It didn't sound sparkly or silky or eagly. It sounded like an old time-worn guitar with an old time-worn vocal.
Yeah.
They were a good match.
It was cohesive.
Yes, it
as
was.
we like to
Not
say.
discongruent.
And then not discongruent.
All right. Speaking of Eagles, this one's called Desperados. Okay.
Okay.
I am just amazed by all the different opinions about what genre and who it reminds them of. I never know if that's a good thing or bad thing. Just notable.
Yeah. All right. So somebody wrote down Beastie Boys. So this is what I wrote down. It's 80s hair rock meets Jane's Addiction meets Rage Against the Machine meets Beastie Boys.
Well, there you go. And she's an expert.
Like, love all of those bands. 80s hair rock, not so much, but love Jane's Addiction, loved Rage Against the Machine, love Beastie Boys. I think that's too many ideas.
Yeah.
Even if this was the 90s, I think it's too many ideas. It's like you get sucked up into one and then it changes and then it's
Right.
another.
Who
and it's
are you
another.
now?
And I think it's gonna be too hard to pair to picture. It's like you have that mood that you're trying to establish in a scene, and like we talk about this a lot in these listings. You're like, cohesive mood and consistency, and I find that just it's not gonna give. You want that forward momentum and you want that energy, but if the mood changes, it's gonna break up whatever's happening in the scene. And I think there's just too many ideas, but that's better than not enough.
This is such a great example, and I'm so glad that you reminded us that we're listening in the context of film and TV, because if I were an A&R person, I might listen to this at a record label. I might listen to this and go, wow, they're challenging themselves to...
No, that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Challenging themselves to... They're pushing the envelope a bit. Even though a lot of it was derivative, they're going places, and that's great in the context of a record. Film and TV, I kept listening to it going, what kind of scene could you use this? Oh, now you couldn't use it for that.
Yeah.
Exactly the same thing you called. And I gotta say, it reminded me the other day, I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, couldn't fall back to sleep. And I turned on the TV because my wife was wearing her little eye mask thing and I knew it wouldn't bother. And I had the sound on 0 and I'm going through and I see Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg. One of the greatest bad movies ever made. Mark Wahlberg and Jennifer Aniston. It was so bad that it was fantastic. Watching that movie with the sound off and then listening to this in headphones while it was playing would have been great. Just saying. You had to be there. But okay.
One thing on the title, I don't know that Desperados is integral to the song. To me, you don't need to be Desperados. You can be something else in the song. And since, Desperado, it's like you're talking about such an iconic song that if you can change it, maybe it's better.
Yeah, make it say Colorado.
Don't do that. That doesn't have
You're right.
doesn't have
Desperado
anything to
is
do with
one of
it.
the greatest songs ever written.
Everybody knows it.
Yeah.
Every music supervisor is going to know that song. If they don't, they have no business being a music supervisor. But they're going to see that, and that's what's going to come to mind. And then it's not going to have anything to do with that. And so just if you can do something that doesn't have a sort of connotation already and doesn't give somebody immediate idea, then it's just better.
Okay, now
sorry.
we're going... No, that's fine. This one's called Float Away.
We sit in the sun even though it isn't summer. Watch balloons rise and spray the sky with color. And they're up and away. Laughter fills the air with golden magic wonder. Bouncing on the breeze, we all begin to flutter. Then we're up and away. Float away with me, let's fly away from here. In the silky air, problems disappear when we're up and away. Soar up and away. Up and away. Float away. We go out at night down our path of milky moonlight, catch the fireflies dancing out at midnight, and they're up and away. Barefoot in the grass, reaching out for starlight, calling us to play. See who might be first up and away. Float away with me, let's fly away from here. In the silky air, problems disappear when we're up and away. Soar up and away. Up and away. Float away.
Somebody in the chat room says, I feel like I'm watching a kid's TV show. Okay, I have maturity issues, but let's not bring it up in the chat room, okay?
Or a commercial. That's what, to me, this goes. This goes commercial. It doesn't feel too children's to me. Does it feel children's to you?
I thought they were talking about me.
Oh, they're talking about
I don't know. I think they're talking about the song.
I feel like I'm watching a kids' TV show.
Yeah,
We'll have to get you a cardigan.
Golden Magic Wonder,
Yeah.
Bouncing in the Breeze. Yeah, it's
Yeah, lyrically, but it doesn't feel children's in that it doesn't feel like, a kid sing-along kind of thing. It's not Rafi, I mean, it didn't feel that way to me. To me, it felt very, kind of commercial, quirky.
TV commercial.
TV commercial.
yeah.
Singer-songwriter. That needed a little work to totally pull it off. But and that was the direction I heard it going more. What I really liked is I really liked the way The Last Float Away balanced the chorus. I thought it was catchy. It really tightened it up and was really cute. I think there was one too many ups and aways in the chorus, and I felt like there were too many in the song overall because it was at the end of every verse. And I think it's going to start to feel just overused. I thought the instrumentation was good. I felt like I was a bit torn on the vocal because I feel like when songs like this, those really cute, sweet commercial songs, when they work, it's because there's that little bit of contrast. It's because there's that one thing that isn't sweet, because otherwise it does feel children's.
I
to
believe
me.
you because I know you're really good at this. I'm trying to think of an example. Can you think of one? I'm not doubting
Yeah,
you.
no,
I'm
no,
just,
no.
I
Yeah,
think an example would be,
definitely.
because that's a great,
Ingrid Michaelson, You and I.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, the lyrics, my gosh, You and I mean, it's just so cute. But then she's got these little quirky things that don't quite fit into that. We'll make sweaters and teach them how to dance. It's these little things that aren't just sunshine, happy day. We're gonna have a castle on the hill and make everybody look like ants. It's that thing that just takes it to that, as that little surprise and that little moment of creativity that
Shows real craft.
which is so good. She's so good. I mean, to make a song that simple, that memorable,
Yeah.
it's
And
pretty
show off
awesome.
that much craft, while being that simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's talent.
Simplicity
and,
is-
yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Lynn Grossman is her manager, and Lynn and I've known each other and done 1 million panels together over the year, but I've never had Lynn on a panel at the Road Rally. And every year I swear I'm going to get her, and I always flash on, I wonder if she could get Ingrid and we could do a little interview with Ingrid because she is kind of unique in the world. She's
Yeah.
got something so special. Anyway,
So this has some of that contrast in the vocal because some of the vocals are sort of heavier, darker than I think one would expect in this bright song. So part of me feels like I want to say that that's right because it gives it that bit of contrast, but I worry if it's the right contrast. I worry that it doesn't always fit the mood of the song, especially with the instrumentation. I think you could actually have a little bit more of an intro here to make it easier to bring up under picture. Also for commercials, they're gonna like that, getting that chunk of instrumentation that they may plug in other places. So to when the voiceover comes in, because for commercials, a lot of times they edit the songs a lot. And if you've got a nice little 15-second intro, they're gonna maybe use that again.
yeah,
But also if you have an instrumental version, they might just pull the vocal off.
that's called a donut. That is
A donut.
Yeah, they call it when voice, lyric, instrumental, lyric. The part in the middle is called the donut,
The donut.
or the donut hole. What did I saw a line I loved. Oh, in the silky air. That's a great adjective for air.
Is it?
Years ago, we had a taxi member that wrote a song, and the lyric was, "The sky is like a dirty shirt." You know, think about that.
Yeah.
That gray kind of morning sky. Yeah,
Or
get
when
it.
there are lots of fires, you're driving into the valley.
Yeah, welcome to
Yeah.
Southern California. Okay.
Smells like it anyway.
Yep.
Sorry.
Next one's called When Fireworks Fly.
Could have been sparks, but it wasn't what I saw. It could have been flames, but it was so much more. For out of the blue, suddenly you appeared, and that's when I knew everything was so clear. A feeling inside I had never felt before, a burning desire. I could never want for more, a touch of your hand, and my heart is ablaze. At first you're surprised, then you start to amaze. One look in your eyes and the passion ignites. I look to the stars, see those fiery lights. Our love will light up the sky when the fireworks fly. Could this be a dream? Now nothing seems the same with you on my team. We can win at this game. You light up my world, and you stop all the rain. You fill up my soul, and you heal all my pain. One look in your eyes and the passion ignites. I look to the stars, see those fiery lights. Our love will light up the sky when the fireworks fly.
Lay it on me. I keep doing that. I'm so sorry.
Get a little pillow for it
Yeah,
to
no
just like
kidding.
bounce on.
I put that on a pillow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So you'll see in the listings like a distinctive vocal will help you get noticed by this supervisor, and you do have a distinctive vocal here, which I like. As the song progresses, though, I find that it starts to feel a bit throaty to me, which it's a very vocally dense song. You know, it's vocals. It's like there's a lot of stuff, and which is good, you know. But what happens then is that like you can get away with, you know, a vocal that is maybe more of like part of an accent to the song. If it's distinctive, it may be a little throaty. If it's coming in and out, then it can be okay. Here, it really dominates the song, and I'm worried that it starts to it just starts to lose without that the sort of those tone and that dynamics that would come out if it's a little bit more forward. It starts to just bring the song down a little bit. I like the way, like if I look at the chorus, it's like one line's like this and the next line's like this and the next line's like this and the next line's like this. And I really like that because it's going to tell me that each line is going to be different and it's going to keep me moving forward in the chorus. But then in the melody, the shorter lines get expanded, and I feel like that the chorus starts to feel like the same, and it doesn't have that forward momentum. And when I look at the verses, they kind of go like this and they go like this, and so each one is going to have has like similar syllable, similar phrasing, and there's not that two long lines and then a short line.
Right.
And the longer line and the short line, which keep you constantly like moving forward in the song. And so I feel like it starts to feel a little too consistent in the melodic movement.
It's got a predictability factor
Yeah.
to the vocal, you know, right where it's going to go. Digging into my deep well of musical knowledge, Rick Springfield. Think about this. Very working man's dog, Jesse's Girl
All
era.
those definitely came to mind. Yeah.
But the difference is Rick Springfield sang the crap out of stuff with such
Oh,
conviction, and the vocalist on this could have probably gotten past the issues which you have accurately pointed out if the conviction was there. Bruce Springsteen would have given it the conviction.
I like wrote down boss.
Yeah, and I wrote down Rick Springfield vocal delivery, not enough conviction. So it's like
Gotta sell that.
You were up on the precipice and you never jumped off the cliff.
Yeah. I think, but I mean, that is, you know, those references, and like that's a big question, right, as far as how marketable that's going to be, because that's such a, you know, specific, distinctive style that so many people have done, and often, if somebody wants that, they're going to go get Rick Springfield.
Well,
they're going to get.
They can't afford them, but sure they can try. I got to tell you guys, I've probably said this before on the show, if you ever get a chance to see Rick Springfield play in concert, I saw him at the Roxy once. I turned to my friend that I was with, who's a huge Springsteen fan, and I said, he made Springsteen look weak. And my friend said, yep, you got it. He was amazing. That guy will climb a monitor stack like 25 feet high. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but he will jump off of monitors and be playing a solo while he's airborne.
How long ago was this?
I don't know, probably 15 years ago. But Rick was definitely in his, like, Rick Springfield's approaching 70.
Yeah.
Okay, so he was probably 50-something at the time, and that dude jumped from way up there, and I remember he had a sparkly green Strat and was playing a lead to, like, Jesse's Girl on the way down. I just went, you're a rock star. Anyway, okay, we are on the last one. This one is called I Wanna Be Where You Are. Let's have a listen. Oh, we've played this on the show before. I think. Stop it now, I'm kidding.
In the darkness of the day, you break through these clouds. I can't see your face, but I sure feel you all around. Know you have to go away, just don't wanna say goodbye. Wish there was more time to say what's weighing on my mind. I'm not ready to let you go. This really hurts my heart. I miss you so damn much. I wanna be where you are, where you are, where you are. When you're on my mind, I feel you all around. Losing all my sleep, trying to sort this out. I want to believe that you'll be alright.
didn't have to wait for me.
I want to clap. I want to clap. So I love the vocals on this song. They really nailed that intimate sound that we were talking about
In a
earlier.
contemporary context.
In a contemporary context, yes, indeed. I find it can be so hard when you have that intimate quality. It starts to get breathy, and when you get breathy, you can start to get flat. And this doesn't do that. It stays. It keeps that breath, but it keeps the tone at the same time, which I think is really hard to do. And I think they nail it in this case. I like the verses melodically, and I like the guitar at the top. I felt like at the second verse, I was wanting something else to come in instrumentally, a bass, some really light, simple percussion, something to just let me know that the song is moving, and that when this is, behind a scene, that the next thing that's happening is just being pushed and being forwarded, so it doesn't start to feel like it's like too circular. If this is playing in a scene, you're not going to be listening to all these lyrics, so it's, if you're not, then the second verse, it just sounds too much like the first verse to me, and you don't know why it's feeling repetitive.
An old
disagree?
production trick? No, I totally agree. And frankly, it just evoked a memory of an old production trick that I was taught by the late, great Tom Dowd, who's one of the greatest producers of all time. And he once said to me, sometimes all you need is a note. And I said, what do you mean? He said, sometimes if it feels like the second verse isn't moving on from the first verse, you just need a note. I said, tell me more, oh wise one. And he went over to the piano, actually the piano that Layla was done on, and he hit like a low C on it. And he said, just a note. And this would be a great place just to have that boom.
Yeah.
And just
need a note.
let it ride.
Yeah, totally.
So thank you, Tom Dowd.
Yeah. And it would make that second verse just feel like the second verse. I felt like at the end of the chorus, I finally got into that groove of I want to be where you are, and then it stopped. And I felt like it should have repeated one more time. I felt like I finally got into the movement of that, something that could really just sort of kind of put that cap on the song of let me know what the song really is about. And then I felt like if that line was repeated one more time, it would feel a lot more balanced, because the first part of the chorus to me doesn't feel like a chorus. It feels like it just comes right out of the verse. And sometimes I think that's okay, but if you're going to do that, then that hook needs to just cement the song and focus it. So it's got that anchor, it's got that, we know what this song is and we know what it's about, even if it's behind a scene and even if we aren't paying that much attention. So there's that one lyric that we know, I want to be where you are.
It almost feels like it doesn't complete the thought, even though on paper it does.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It kind of leaves you hanging rather than going,
Yeah. Resolve. It feels
yeah,
like it
right.
needs to resolve.
That's the word, resolve.
Yeah.
See, you're so professional. Thank you. You came up with a better word than discongruent, which whoever did that earlier, that just made the whole show worth living for. Well, thank you. You were awesome as always, and
Thank you.
I mean your insight is just wonderful. And you guys, thank you for being brave. I know it takes a lot of courage to have your songs analyzed in front of a bunch of people, even though we don't attach names to it. It's still your baby, So,
Oh, yeah.
holding
So
your baby
hard.
up and going, be cuter with blonde hair. So don't forget to join us next week. I'm going to do something so incredibly fresh, wonderful, never been done on the show before. And as soon as I figure out what the hell that is, I will let you know. Brooke Ferry.
I thought it was fashion, right?
That's right.
Fashion tips.
Okay, next week, I'm going to wear a shirt with something on it, and something I've never worn. 8 years of doing the show, I'm going to wear a new shirt for the show, and you guys are going to love it, I promise. Thank you very much, Brooke Ferry.
Thank you.
See you at the Road Rally coming up November 1st through the 4th in Los Angeles. Here, we need more music for that. We are already literally 3 times the registrants, 300% the number of registrants we had this far out from the rally last year. So the hotel rooms are going fast. They're almost gone probably. And that's it. Sign up for the Road Rally November 1st through the 4th in Los Angeles, and you can hang out with people like Brooke Ferry. Bye, you guys. Woohoo! See you next week.